Good evening. I'm Eileen Brewer. This evening, I will be talking about creating a support network for yourself if you suffer from migraine or other headache diseases. Um, I'll start by telling you a little bit about me if you don't know me. I am a moderator for AMF, and I'd like to thank AMF for having me here today to talk about this. It's a topic I'm really passionate about. I also am with the Patient Leadership Council for the National Headache Foundation. I'm the Vice President of Cluster Busters, the Director of Retreat Migraine with the Coalition for Headache and Migraine Patients. I volunteer for CMA, Chronic Migraine Awareness. I work with Miles for Migraine and Migraine World Summit. Hi, Nancy. For doing a project called Migraine Community Groups. And personally, I'm the president of a preschool. I am a Daisy Scout troop leader, and I'm a mother of two amazing children. They're 3 and 7 years old. And I'm a wife, and I live in Columbia, Maryland. So that's me. I am incredibly busy, but I do live with chronic migraine disease. And I have been living with chronic migraine disease since I was 15. I'm 44 now, so you can do the math if you want. I haven't in a while. I was diagnosed when I was 15 anyway, and that's about the time that I was chronic. I had my first migraine attack when I was 5 years old, or at least that I can remember. I'd asked my parents if things happened before that, but they had passed away, so I can't really inquire about it. We know more about migraine disease now, like we think that colic might be related to it, and cyclical vomiting syndrome is common in kids. I don't remember that far back, so I don't know. But I got my diagnosis when I was 15, and one of the things that struck me at the time of my diagnosis was that I didn't know anybody else who was like me. And I felt really alone. And I didn't think that there was anything that I could do to change that. When I was about 32 years old, I decided that I wanted to find out if there was something I could do to change it, and I started Googling for organizations that helped people like me. I found a lot about research, but not a lot about support. So I still felt alone. Research is really great, and I really do appreciate all of the organizations that are dedicated to research. And the reason I appreciate that is because I want new treatments for my disease. There isn't a cure right now. I hope that by the time my daughter is my age, there's a cure. In the meantime, I do want more treatments. The first treatment that came out that helped me a little bit came out in the 90s, and then there was a huge gap in between. And then CGRPs, as most people know, came out last year, and that was a big thing, but they aren't effective for everybody. So, you know, we don't have a lot of treatments. I'm not here to talk about treatments, though. In all of this time, even though there aren't a lot of treatments, I wanted support. I wanted support now rather than waiting for a new treatment to come along. I wanted to feel like I belonged and that I was understood. And so looking for a support community was important to me. I found my first home with the American Headache and Migraine Association, which doesn't exist anymore, but that led me to working with the American Migraine Foundation. And so it's been a pretty great journey for me, finding all of these different ways that I could help. But a lot of people wonder what can they do and how can they find a way to have better support in their own lives. One of the first things that I learned is that you need to find a good doctor. And finding a good doctor is a really important thing. And actually finding a team of good doctors is a really important thing. My first doctor was a guy named Dr. Speed, and he was amazing. And really, he was kind of a gruff guy, but he really understood the disease and had a lot of good ideas. But then he retired, and I was without a doctor for a while, and it took a while for me to find my current doctor. You don't necessarily need to find a doctor that is a headache specialist, but if your current doctor is out of ideas, look for a headache specialist. A headache specialist might have ideas that nobody else knows about because they're not able to spend the time to research it. It's not that they're bad doctors, just there's so much going on in the medical world. So it's important to find somebody who really focuses on your headache disease, whatever it may be. So American Migraine Foundation just posted their Find a Doctor link, and that's a good place to go. But even if you have found a good headache specialist, it's important to include your whole team of doctors. While your headache specialist can come up with the new great ideas for what to do, your primary care physician can support that in that they can refill your prescriptions for you if you have found something that works, or while you're trying out different medications. So you don't always need to be calling your headache specialist for refills or whatever. So involve your primary care physician after you've gotten that headache specialist thing or diagnosis and treatment plan. Involve your primary care provider so that you have more support. Headache specialists, there aren't very many of them. There's like one for every 70,000 people with a headache disease. So they have really limited time, and you may wait a year to see a headache specialist or 6 months, or they may not have appointments. But if you have your primary care provider to back up your headache specialist in your treatment, it will go smoother. They may not talk on the phone or even write to each other, but you can take paperwork from one to the other. And that is a good way to make sure that you're supported as far as your medical concerns are happening. You also may want to include other care providers like psychiatrists and therapists, and alternative therapies, like if you are going to see somebody for biofeedback therapy, which has been something that's really useful to me, learning that. It's important that all of your care providers know what is going on with all the rest of your care providers. That way they can give you the best support and help. It's also important to find these other care providers. A lot of people, when they are dealing with a chronic pain condition or even an episodic pain condition, they experience a lot of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, fears over when your next attack is going to happen and how it's going to affect your life. And if you work through that with a mental health care provider, then you will have better success in the rest of your treatment as well, and it will support your life better. Mental health care providers can also teach you how to think and talk about your disease when you're talking to other people, and that's a really important thing. The other thing that we have often in this community, unfortunately, is thoughts of suicide. And that can be really scary if you sit around and think about, I have to live with this for the rest of my life. And what am I going to do? You may not have always the strength to continue, and you may need a lot of extra support to get through that. I myself, when I was in my mid-20s, I attempted to take my life. And the reason for that was because I was scared. I was scared of having to think about what I ate every day and what I was going to do with my medications to live without pain. And I knew that I wasn't going to live without pain. And I was just so tired and so desperate for an escape from all of that. And I was scared. And I tried to take my life because of that. And out of that experience, I learned some really good things, because I did wind up in a mental health facility, which wasn't exactly the most fun thing ever, but those people, they really took care of me, and they really did teach me how to cope better. They gave me a lot of skills to cope. And I always thought of mental health as something that you didn't talk about, and something that you didn't face, and something that you just had to fix, that you were weak if you weren't okay all the time. And I learned from that it's okay not to be okay. Sometimes it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to go somewhere and say, I need to learn these coping skills that apparently come easy to other people. So, include mental health care providers. It's important. It will help you. I know that it can be difficult to find help, especially for pain care. So I do have some resources for that I will share. NAMI is a good resource. There's an organization, I wrote it down here, if you are not in the United States, called the Movement for Global Mental Health. And there's always the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. So definitely look for these things, get the mental health care that you need, and that will support you in your disease. The last thing that I want to say about professional relationships is be educated about your disease, because when you do go into these doctors' offices, you want to make sure that you make the most of your time. So know about your disease, know about the different treatments that are available, know what you have tried before, have a list, and be familiar with it, so that if the doctor says, well, why don't we try verapamil, you can be like, yeah, I already tried that like a dozen years ago, and this was the outcome. Know how much you took, know when you took it, know what side effects you had, know everything that you can about your history and about what works for you. So that you can make the most of your time, because your doctor's appointments, a lot of them are only going to be 8 minutes or less, because that's how much time doctors have since they're dealing with so many patients. So just be really educated about your disease. The American Migraine Foundation has a huge database of resources to learn different things about your disease. And there's also the Move Against Migraine Facebook page, and there's other Facebook communities as well, like Chronic Migraine Awareness has a Facebook community. You can go there and find out what other people are dealing with. I kind of call it the has anyone else kind of communities, because there's so much in those communities that is people saying, has anyone else ever felt like their hands were giant right before they had a migraine attack? Or has anybody else ever had tearing out of one eye during an attack? So you can really find out, you can really learn a lot about what other people are experiencing. Now, of course, always discuss with your doctor these other symptoms that you might be having, so that they can rule out any other diseases or causes. But, after that, it's good to talk to people and find out what else everybody else is doing. I am getting a migraine attack, so I apologize. My nose is running and I'm losing my train of thought a bit. I will find my place, I swear. So, like I said, with the Facebook community, that is a good resource for learning about your illness, but it's also a good resource to have contact with other people who really get it, who really understand what you're going through. If you're a cluster headache patient, there is a cluster headache Facebook group, or 10 probably, and that's a good place to go to talk about what you're experiencing, and other people just be like, oh yeah, I do that too. And it feels good to know that you're not alone in this, and that even though in your real life you don't want people to see you having an attack, because you don't ever want to see people you don't want people to see you at your worst. You can go to these places where people really understand, and even if they do see you at your worst, you don't care, because you see them at their worst too, and you really understand how it feels to be there. So social media can be an extremely important tool for having a support network. And it's always available to you, even if you are unable to leave your cave, or unable to leave your house, or unable to talk to people in your real life social circle. You still have this. But I do want to say that a real life social circle is an important thing to do as well, because A computer can't give you a hug. A computer can't run to the store and pick up a prescription for you or take you to the ER. So finding people that in your real life are um, there for you is a really important thing. And, it's hard to talk in real life about your disease. It's hard to say, I need this kind of help, but it's also really important to do so. So one of the things that I do is I'm always really upfront about it. I'm always really like, if I meet somebody and I want them to be a part of my life, I say, I have this disease and this is what it entails. And I'm armed with information about it. And I can say, this is how I'm feeling. And I might have to leave a social function, or I might not show up at all. And this is why, but I will try and show up when I can. And I do really want, those social interactions. But some people just, they don't want to hear that. They don't want that to be a part of their life. And so it's okay to let those people go away. But the people who are going to be a part of your life will hear you and will be accepting of that. And those are good people to keep around. In my personal life, when my husband and I started dating, 2 weeks after we started dating, I found out that I had cancer. And I told him, I was like, you don't really have to stay around for this. I have cancer. I'm chronic migraine sufferer. And this is my life, and this is real, and it might be too much for somebody who's been dating for 2 weeks. And he stuck around. So I knew that this was a person that was really worth keeping in my life. But I have family members who really just think that I should take a Tylenol and move on with my day, and they don't understand. And no matter how much I've tried to educate them on the disease, they don't get it. And so I've had to let them not be a part of my life anymore. And that's okay too. It sucks. It hurt. It made me angry, but I had to let it go to, have a better life for myself. And I have friends that I've had to let go as well. But being armed with the education and information so that I can tell people what's going on and tell them right away has helped me a lot to maintain a social circle. And then there's times when being armed with information is great, when you just want to advocate for yourself. I was sitting in class in school one day, and I mentioned during being asked a question that I was having a migraine attack and that I wasn't making a lot of sense. And I apologized. And there was this girl in my class who just was like, I am so sick of hearing people and their migraines and their excuses. Why can't you just take an Excedrin and get on with it? And at the time I was 20 years old, and I just froze. I was like, okay, I guess I won't talk anymore. But had I been armed with some knowledge and some education, I probably would have spoken up and said, I have a neurological disease, and I apologize if that's inconvenient for you, but an Excedrin doesn't work for everybody. And, I would have been able to stand up for myself and my community. And so it's really important, like I said, to be armed with information so that you can have a good conversation with people about it. And again, American Migraine Foundation has a ton of resources so that you can arm yourself with that information. Also, I was reading an article written by Paula Dumas, who is, she heads up the Migraine World Summit along with Carl Cincinnato, and I think she's on the board of the American Migraine Foundation, actually. At any rate, she wrote this article, and it has a whole bunch of questions and topics for broaching this conversation with people. I'll share it when I'm done the talk, so that you can take a look and think about how you're going to talk to people about it, because it's a scary thing to do. So if you start to think about it a little bit logically, then it becomes less scary. And I think that you'll be surprised when you do decide to talk to people about your disease, how understanding people will be if they have all of the good information. So check that out too. Where else am I going with this talk? Oh yeah, don't withdraw from activities in your life. if you do have social plans, don't decide, oh, I have migraine disease, I have cluster headache, I am afraid, because I almost feel like that makes it worse if you're not doing things, if you're not planning things. If you stop planning things, then it just becomes okay to be in your cave, even if you do feel well. Or sort of well. So get up every day, make plans. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. But if it does work out, that's wonderful. Try making plans that are migraine friendly. Like if you want to see your friends, tell them, look, I'm not feeling great, but come over. We'll have a quiet evening with all the lights out. We'll turn on a movie. Even if you can't watch it, just hide your head in a pillow and listen to it and listen to your friends. And make some migraine friendly snacks for you, or make some cocktails, whatever you can handle that will benefit you and soothe you and comfort you. So make it a headache friendly activity. If you're experiencing a cluster headache and you need to get up and go have an attack and then, come back and continue to participate with your friends, even if you're exhausted and you have to lay down on the floor for a while, do it. Don't cancel your life because you have a disease. And it'll also help to maintain friendships. If you build up that friend equity when you are feeling well, then they won't think that you don't care, that you don't want to be a part of their lives. Do the same with your family. Take those good days to really do it big. Don't do chores. Nobody cares. When you get to your deathbed, nobody's going to say, I wish I had cleaned my house more. So don't bother. Go out and have fun on the good days. Go to a loud concert, even though you know that it might cost you dearly. Do it anyway, because that's living. So live. When you can, do it. Or at least that's what I like to do. I like to live. Go to a coffee shop rather than a bar. That's okay too. So join the online support groups, but have a support group in person. I mentioned earlier there's migraine community groups. We are expanding that program, and that is an in-life, real-life support program that's coming to cities around the country where you can go. You can talk to other people with migraine disease so it's in life. Cluster Busters has real life support groups in several cities. They are forming more. Form one of your own if there's not one in your city. Just decide that you're going to start like a meetup group or something and meet other people who really get it. And offer support to your caregivers as well, the people in your life that take care of you, that look out for you when you're not feeling well, the people that will bring you an ice pack, like my kids, they bring me ice packs. Or my husband will get home from work and realize that I'm not doing well, and he'll just put a bucket next to me in case I'm going to vomit, and he'll bring me an ice pack, and he'll cook dinner, and he'll take the kids out. And so I have to make sure that he also feels supported, because his life can be exhausting too. He works all day, he comes home, he works, he doesn't have a rest. And so we're all really busy, but I want to make sure that he's supported as well. So as often as I can, I offer him opportunities to talk to other caregivers that really get what he's going through. He doesn't always take it because he's not a very social guy, but a lot of caregivers really do want that. So try. And there's also Retreat Migraine. I got to put it in a plug for that. It's a once-a-year annual convention. We had the first one last year, and it was really great. So, get out there, do the activities. Cluster Busters has a patient conference every year. I hope that in the future, those of you with new daily persistent headache get a conference together, because that is a very growing community. If you want help, I'll help. I love putting together conferences. It's kind of my thing. And let's see, what else do I have to say? Advocacy. I don't have a lot more to say about advocacy, and I think there's going to be a Facebook Live next week about it. But, tell your friends and family what you need. Advocate for yourself. Tell your kids that they can help you by being quiet and bringing ice packs. Tell your husband that you need, or your wife, that you need quiet and that you're not upset with them, but you just need to be alone for a little while. Make sure they understand, and do it when you're healthy. Tell people what you need when you're healthy. That way, when you're feeling really bad, you don't have to ask for it. It just happens. And then when you are feeling well, sometimes make sure that you give them what they need to. Sometimes my husband just wants me to take the kids so that he can have a quiet day at home to play video games. So definitely, I'll be like, I'm feeling great. I'm going to take the kids to the park, and then we'll go for some pizza or something, and he can have a night to himself. So make sure that your support community is supported in ways like that. Or just find out how they want to spend the day with you if you're feeling well. Be like, what do you want to do? What can I do for you? Sometimes I need my husband to cook a certain meal for me. Usually it's just like dry toast or something like that. So he has a list of things that Eileen needs to feel better when she's having a bad time. So make sure that you just tell them, these are the things that I need when I'm feeling sick. And that way, when you are feeling sick, you don't have to give that list. Offer educational resources and materials to your support network, like I said. And find other ways to advocate for yourself, like telling the community around you what you need, telling your workspace what you need, like please don't wear perfume. It's okay to ask for things like that in the work environment. And then if you're really feeling up to it, find out what you can do to help in the community. It's Headache and Migraine Awareness Month. There's a ton of different organizations. You can find out about all of them and their activities. If you're feeling like you want to help out in the community, there are a ton of ways to do it. You can find them on the American Migraine Foundation website. You can find them on the Coalition for Headache and Migraine Patients website. You can find a lot of ways to help out. We would love it.